Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Saturday, everyone, and welcome to Richard Skipper Celebrates. I am so excited about today's show. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back. For those of you who are here for the first time, the show is Richard Skipper Celebrates, and I'm all about celebrating artists and their body of worth. I've said this before, and I will say it again. I love artists. Anyone who spends time creating, on whatever level it is, I am a fan, and it's a lot easier when that artist that I'm celebrating also happens to be a friend. Now, before I bring our very special guest, Mark Allen, on today, I'd like to take you back. We're going to take a trip today down memory lane. I came to New York, as most of you know, in 1979. And a few years after moving to New York, I discovered the world of the piano bar, and I was hooked. I would say that my 20s were spent in almost every piano bar in New York, with every great piano player, every great singer. That entire world was something magical that, even though there are still piano bars around, and I'm sure that Mark Allen will agree with me on this, it's not the same thing. I would find my way to the Monster on a Friday or Saturday night, and then I would leave the Monster and I would go to Marie's Crisis. I would sing there for a while. Then I would leave Marie's Crisis and I would show up at the Duplex. Now I'm talking about the original Duplex. And that's where Mark and I first encountered each other for the first time. But before Mark speaks, I would leave there, then I would leave the Five Oaks and I would go to 88's. And if I felt really ambitious, I would get on the subway or even in a cab if I felt flushed, and I would go to Don't Tell Mama. And then I would retrace my steps and I would come all the way back. All the other piano bars would close down at 4 o'clock in the morning, except for the Five Oaks. And then we would all find ourselves at the Five Oaks, and everybody would be singing for each other. And then when the Five Oaks closed, we would all find ourselves at the Tiffany Diner. Does that sound like the world that you knew, Mark?
Pretty much is the way I lived it, except I was working in the Duplex, and I really didn't have the chance to bounce from place to place unless we were going next door for a quick shot on our break, you know?
Now, before we jump into all of this, because we are in the midst of a little thing called a pandemic, I want to know how you're doing, really, in the midst of all this.
We're actually doing, knock wood, pretty good, despite everything being closed and no opportunities to really go out and see, because I'm living in Sarasota now. So when we moved here, everything was open. We had the ballet, we had the symphony, we had choruses and circus acts and theaters up the wazoo, and opera. Did I say that? Yeah, we had it all down here, and it just pretty much ground to a halt. So it'll get back because it's a very affluent community, and I'm very happy to be here and part of it, actually.
Well, let me ask you this. Are you keeping yourself creative during this time?
Well, I decorated my Christmas tree today, and I put the lights on yesterday. I'm dragging this thing out longer than Hanukkah, you know, so I have something to do every day.
Well, I want to, go back. You're originally from Connecticut, am I correct?
Correct. Windsor Locks. My whole family is still there, and it's my mom's birthday actually today. So happy birthday, Mom, if you're watching.
Happy birthday, Mom. I hope she's watching. I just received my Christmas card from my mom. So this is for our moms today. Who are all there in our
Thanks,
corner.
Mom.
Yes. And
we wouldn't be here.
Thank you, Mom, for Mark Allen. So growing up in Connecticut, brothers, sisters?
Yeah. Brothers and sisters. I have 3 brothers and 1 sister. They're all still there except for one brother who's now in California.
And where do you fit in?
Go ahead.
Where do you fit in?
I'm the eldest.
I'm the oldest of 4, so I know pretty much what
Yeah,
that.
all right. So we're pretty much the same. You moved to New York 1 year before I did.
And take everyone back. I mean, I grew up in South Carolina on a tobacco farm. So the jump for me was a major jump. And New York of 1979 was a very different New York from what it is now. Did you have the same experience when you came to New York from Connecticut?
Well, I was coming for the sake of pursuing theater. So I went right to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
I love that. That's in your bio.
Stayed there for two years. And when the 3rd season was not offered to me, I took a walk down to the Village and went to a place that I had been once before called the Duplex on 55 Grove Street. And 2 weeks later, I was working there.
And how did that come about? I mean, did you get up and perform the first time that you were there? And if so, do you remember what your first performance was?
The first time I was there, it was just singing with the crowd. The second time, after I left the American Academy, I went down just to drown my sorrows because I wasn't invited back, mea culpa. And Karen Miller was at the piano.
Right.
And I'm singing Shady Dame from Seville, and Victor Victoria was big then. So she's playing this and I'm singing like Julie Andrews and she stops the piano cold. She says, I hear you singing, get up here. And I was like, me? No, no, I'm really good. Thanks. She says, no, right now, get up here. And I did. And 2 weeks later, I was working there. So I owe a lot of this, lots to Karen Miller.
Absolutely. I love Karen. And did you pursue them or did they pursue you?
Well, I kind of fit in after that number. So I kept going back and they said, yeah, we want you to join the team. And it was under the Rob Hoskins, Raible umbrella. So I had a couple nights at the Duplex, a couple nights at Mama's, and then a couple nights at Brandy's. So it was awesome because after a while, a matter of months, years, no matter where I went in New York, somebody was saying, oh, aren't you? And I saw you at. It was fantastic. I felt like a big fish in a little pond. It was pretty awesome.
Now, can you describe for everyone what that world was like at the time? Because for me, I'll go first. Walking into the Duplex with Karen Miller, and the first time that I came in, and they were doing Hello Dolly, and I started doing someone that you may know named Carol Channing. When I started doing that, yes, you've heard of her. Karen Miller stopped, same thing, get up here and sing, but it was welcoming. And
that's exactly what it was, and that's why I kept going back. And I needed a job.
So, I mean, had you waited before? Was this a new experience for you? Was it easy for you?
It was like riding a bike without a seat at first, but but you get used to it. It was the Village after all. It was lovely. It was just lovely. I didn't miss Connecticut. I got a chance to go back and see the folks. And
now, were you living in Manhattan at the time?
I was living on Madison Avenue 29th Street at the Hotel Seville then. And then I moved to Midtown after I started working at the Duplex on 45th Street across from the Whitby. I don't even know what the name of my building was. And then I moved to 9th Avenue between 46th and 47th. So right around the corner from Mama's. So it was awesome. And you look at your watch. Oh, we got 5 minutes. You want to go to TKTS to go see a show? Sure. And we were there.
And it was much more affordable. or
It
going
was.
and getting the tubers or any of those things that were around at that time.
The first
Now,
show I saw was Dracula, and it was the second row center. This is 78 though. 1350. I just ran across the program, and it has the ticket stub stapled in it.
Frank Langella?
For Dracula.
Was it Frank Langella?
Oh, yes. As a matter of fact, yes. And that Edward Gorey set and everything, the black and white. Oh, it was fantastic.
It was incredible. And did you let's go back to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts.
Thank you. You got it right.
Yes, you refer to it as the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. For what reason?
It was a mess at the time. I'm not discrediting the school at all. I did have some great teachers that I learned a lot from there, and I gained my appreciation for musicals and musical theater there. But we had a lot of the teachers were actors themselves at the time, and in the middle of them teaching you some sort of method or way of doing things, they left to do a job, and we were left with substitute teachers who came in and wanted us to lay on our backs and picture yourself on a cloud. And it's like, I did not pay for a meditation class. I came here to learn acting.
You know, it reminds me of a great story that Nathan Lane tells, that when he first came to New York and he went to his first acting class, and they were all supposed to go to the window, imagine, see whatever it was that they saw outside the window, and do an improv on it. And he's standing at the window and he's staring out. And the teacher says, "Okay, Nathan, what do you see?" He says, "I see $300 flying away." And we've all been there. I mean, the stories, you know, again, these were people who, if they were good, would get jobs and they'd go away. And the people that you got stuck with were not always the best people, and you're paying for this, and it's not what you wanted to be. But let me ask you, and why do you think that you weren't asked back a third year?
I slept with the wrong people.
Is that true?
It's my story. I'm sticking to it. How about that?
So getting back to the Duplex, did you continue to pursue a career as an actor while you were working as a singing waiter?
Not so much, because I was having so much fun and getting that applause every night and working on my craft and always trying to come up with new songs and new bits to just keep it fresh. Because if I'm doing the same routine every night, it got boring for me. Bobby Nealon, after my first show at Panache, told me, "Mark Allen, you're at your best when you cater to yourself."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, if I could make myself laugh, I knew it was reading, and everybody else was having fun and coming along for the ride. And that was the joy of those piano bars in those days. They were magical. There's nothing like them, where you could, like you said earlier, bounce from one to the other and make the rounds. It was amazing. It was an amazing
Scott
time.
Barbarino, God bless him, has created Piano Bar Live, and he's running.
Which I'm doing on the 22nd.
We'll tune in. But one of the great things about Scott Barbarino is there were so many of us that, for whatever reason it was, we all hit New York at the same time. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a renaissance or if it just was this baby boomer thing that was happening. But so many of us, and unfortunately, you know, we all went through the AIDS crisis together. We lost some very dear friends at that time. But why do you think that world doesn't exist now? And do you think it could come back?
I think it was the computers and the Zooms and the cell phones and chatting that way, and not going out for a live evening event or an evening of live entertainment. I think that's what has done it. I mean, the gay bars pretty much stopped after Grindr, and scruff, I think, is a thing. Okay.
I think I've been married for 30 years, so I don't know about those things. But I do want to say that.
But you've heard.
But I've heard. And I want to say this with all due respect to the people that are working in the piano bars now. There was a welcoming of getting everyone to sing along instead of being the star of the evening. And again, I don't want to disrespect anyone out there doing this, but I think that once that shift started happening, the spark went away from me. Do you know what I'm talking about?
When it became more about the starlight and the spotlight for an individual than an inclusive group.
Exactly. Did you
yes, I agree.
That as well?
I agree.
Do you want to elaborate or talk about that?
I like you don't like to go there because it's not pretty, but it does exist, and it shouldn't. And hopefully, when everything gets back to normal and we're able to go back to these places, that people will humble themselves just a tad more and be more welcoming to their fellow humans and Americans.
And I want to go back to that time, and I'd like you to describe, with your favorite memories of each of these rooms that I'm going to talk about. And we'll start with the Duplex, where it all started for you. What you learned from being, how long were you there, by the way?
I was there through from 82 until 35 years later.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because I went through the transition of Rick and Larry having the Duplex, and then I went through the Pham family and changing the name to Rose's Turn, and I was still there that entire thing. The place just changed around me. So.
And what were some of the biggest changes that you can tell us about as these changes were taking place?
Changes?
Mm-hmm.
You know what?
The feel of the rooms.
The nothing, because the new owners wanted to keep it the entity that it was.
Mm-hmm.
So when Rick and Larry took it over, they loved the piano bars. They did wonderful things with the cabaret and keeping that going. The piano bar flourished even when it became Rose's Turn, and the Pham family took that over and also bought Mama's eventually too. They had both of them, and they wanted the staff. They bought it as it was, and they continued to try to keep it as it was for as long as they could. And, times change, and we're waiting for that 20-year cycle to come back around so that retro is hip again.
Yeah. So you said 35 years. What are some of the biggest changes that you felt in terms of the ebb and flow of the piano bar in New York?
The holidays. On the Upper East Side at Brandy's, we always were packed on St. Patrick's Day. The Village, always for Gay Pride and Halloween, the best times. And I want to take you back. Do you remember doing all those John Michel Christmas shows?
Oh my God!
I think that is actually where we met. Backstage at one of his shows.
This was at the Grove Street Playhouse.
Or one of those.
Laundry. It was, oh my God. Well, I started with Men of Manhattan, and I was performing at the Grove Street Playhouse, and that was changing. And tell everyone about the Five Oaks, because the Five Oaks was such a special place in our lives.
Well, it was a stomping ground that everybody did on that pilgrimage down Grove Street, starting at the Monster and just zigzagging and going from one to the other. And this is even before the days when 88's was open. But I eventually worked there at one point and was doing a routine one night and backed into the piano. And that's when I discovered, hey, you have leukemia. So, that was a big change in my life, and everything
Take
came
us
to a
back to
complete
that
stop.
point.
Huh?
Do you want to talk about that, or would you rather skip over that?
We can skip over it, or I don't mind going for it. I'm on a stream of consciousness, and I went there.
So you said you bumped into the piano when you discovered you had leukemia. What happened?
Well, I woke up the next day, and there was a bruise the size of a cake plate on my hip. I was like, what the hell is that? So I'm thinking it's an iron deficiency. So I started eating steak and broccoli and yada, yada. And one of the waitresses that was at the Duplex was also a nurse at the time. This was the new Duplex across the street.
Mm-hmm.
So I said to her, question, have you ever seen this? And I showed it to her. And she says, that doesn't look good. Get yourself to an oncologist immediately. And it was a good thing I did, because if I had continued, I wouldn't be here.
Mm.
But when I was sick with that, everybody was like, "Oh, he's got AIDS. He's got AIDS." And I think it was chosen to have something different and survive it.
Yeah.
To offer a little hope and that there's other things out there.
Well, Danny tells the story. My husband, Danny, when the AIDS crisis first began and we started first becoming aware of it, so many people had sarcoma. And Danny tells a story where he was working on the house and he fell off the ladder and he had bruises all over him, and then went to Fire Island for the weekend. And everybody thought that he had AIDS.
Oh, yes. Avoiding it like the plague. No pun intended. But it was terrible. It was terrible how we discriminated, but we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know. We kept people at arm's length, and it wasn't 6 feet, but at arm's length. Just because we didn't know how it was transmitted, where it was going, where it came from, how we were the ones that were getting it, and why so many of our friends didn't make it.
And do you remember when you first started hearing about it, and what was going on in your mind, psychologically and everything at that time?
Well, I was terrified that it was happening to gay men in particular, and I was even more terrified that it was through something that I really enjoyed, sex. Mm-hmm. So, that put a damper on things, and I just got smart, mm-hmm. And I tried not to poke the bear or take risks. That's why I go outside now when I wear a mask, or mm-hmm. I glove up. And if a restaurant's too crowded, I turn right around and say, no, I'm uncomfortable. I can't do this.
And, as difficult as it was, we all made it through it. Not all of us, unfortunately.
Yes, that is true. But I lost a couple lovers that way,
And I lost, some good friends. When did you reach the point where you started auditioning again and you started stepping outside of the comfort zone? Because it was very comfortable. I also became a waiter at Marie's Crisis, and it became very comfortable to go in, as you said. We were the stars of our own universes at that time. But then to step outside of that and to start auditioning or creating outside of that realm.
Well, I got a little lucky because when some casting people came down they were doing a thing at the Mass Rep. They were going to do Moby Dick the musical, the American premiere. Mm-hmm. And they found themselves in 88, and they loved Terry White. And I mean, who doesn't? But got the chance to absolutely work with her every Saturday night. And it was fantastic over there at Rose's. But anyway, different story. They cast her as Ahab's wife in Moby Dick. And they started asking her, where would they find somebody that did impressions? Because there was a role that required that. She sent them from her shift at 88 around the corner to see me at Rose's. The two of us were in the office signing contracts the very next day. So it was pretty awesome. They came to us.
Oh, go ahead.
But I did go out, but not so much in pursuit of something. But when my piano bar days went by the wayside and just passed,
Mm-hmm.
I was tired. But when a couple of years went by and Surflight was doing things, or Theater by the Sea, I would go up or audition for them. And in 2010, I did the whole season with Steve Steiner and the Surflight crew over in New Jersey, and did all eight of their performances, because I was the token equity person that they needed to fulfill their contract. So it was awesome.
And what was the show that you got your equity card with?
Huh?
What was the show that you got your equity card with?
It was a children's theater tour called The Secret Garden, not the famous one, that the Broadway musical, but it was a kids' version for TheaterWorks. Mm-hmm. And I played dual role in that, schizo that I am. And Grace, please. I don't want to play.
I'm going, who's snoring there?
Yeah, no, it's my dog. She wants to play.
Oh, that's okay.
Bring me back. Where were we?
Your equity card, The Secret Garden.
Oh, yeah. So I played a dual role there, and it was an awesome tour because we went up and down the East Coast twice. And that's when I fell in love with Florida, because I had never been there before. Mm-hmm. And I said, someday I'm going to live there. Well, here I am. We went out to the Midwest, to Ohio, and did all the Sea Cities, Cincinnati, Cleveland, and Columbus. Mm-hmm. And I got to play the Palace, the one that everybody talks about in Cleveland. So that was pretty good. But the height of that tour, not only getting the equity card, was getting the opportunity to go out to Alaska. They flew us up there for a week in Anchorage during the Fur Rendezvous season and the Iditarod and all that stuff. So it was something that I would never have seen if I hadn't been in theater. And it's awesome. It was awesome.
And is there any particular night that stands out?
Are you there?
Yes. Can you hear me? No. Can you hear me?
Hello?
No. Hello? Hello? This
Richard?
happened. I'm here. Can you see me?
Richard, I have you. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm talking to you. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
For it to catch up with your face.
This happens, folks.
Yes, but you froze there.
No, I'm not. I'm still talking. You're but
I can hear you, but you're not moving.
Okay.
Can you see me?
I can see you, and everything's fine. Just keep going. Can you hear me? Testing.
Now I can, and you're kind of in sync.
Okay, perfect. It happens when you're on different wavelengths. But I was going to ask you if there was one particular night that stands out above all others when you were working in the piano bars.
Well, meeting Jeff Stryker was kind of interesting.
Now, we need to explain to some of our viewers, like my mom, who Jeff Stryker is. Jeff Stryker was a very well-known porn star in this gay. Well, I think he did both, didn't he?
No, he did both.
He did both.
He did both.
But well-known in the gay community, porn star in the 70s and 80s. I can't believe that I'm just explaining Jeff Stryker to my mom. But anyway, you met Jeff Stryker.
No, it was just one of the many celebrities and people that came in, and like Liza was there one night, and I was doing a pitch for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS and the AIDS Walk New York, because I was a big advocate for that for so many years, especially growing up in the 80s and it being what you did. Mm-hmm. You made a difference. So she came in and she sponsored me for $100, and she started handing the donation slip around the room, saying, "Sign this. You've got to support him. He's doing a marvelous and very important job." Really. So
Good for her. That's great.
and of course, you know, the the word got around up to Don't Tell Mamas, and he thought Milli Vanilli was down at Rose's. So what do you mean Milli Vanilli is there? He said, no, Liza Minnelli. Milli Vanilli, Liza with a Z.
Not
and Lisa Hall comes out.
Yes.
Did you call me?
So did he make it in time to see her?
Did he make it in town to see? No, these were two different times.
Oh, okay.
You're talking Jeff Stryker?
Yes.
No, my favorite nights have always been with Liza.
And she frequently, I mean, I remember seeing her and Billy Stritch early on in
my God, yes.
At the Five Oaks.
Well, I was introduced to Billy Stritch way back with Montgomery Plant and Stritch when they were debuting at Don't Tell Mamas, and I was the first waiter to work that back room. I paved the way for Randy Lester. So
now, were you working on Grove Street in that area when I hate to go there, but
9/11?
No, when the murder took place.
John Lennon?
I'm sorry?
John Lennon, you mean?
No, there was a guy who frequented the Five Oaks, and he was murdered.
Oh, Michael Zaccaro.
Michael Zaccaro, yes.
Yes, I was there, and I could not believe there was a serial killer running around in the village and preying on gay men.
Mm-hmm.
It made me fear for my life more than the AIDS and more than until he was caught. And I don't even know if the guy was caught.
I don't think he was caught. But what was so bizarre about this time is that he was really going after what came across as closeted gay men. Michael, didn't give that vibe of being a gay man. He worked in a printing shop, and when the printing shop would shut down, he would come to the Five Oaks, sit at the bar, have a few drinks. Marie Blake, God rest her soul, would bring him up to in the evening with "I'll Be Seeing You," and then he and I would get on the subway. I was living on the Upper West Side at the time, and we would take the subway up together. And then this happened, and it really changed. And there we were dealing with the AIDS crisis, but this whole fearful thing that there was thought that it could be anyone amongst us.
I know, and you never knew who it would. It was like Knives Out or a game of Clue. Everybody was a suspect then. It was so weird, and but thank God we got through that too. So
for me, that was the beginning of the end of the Five Oaks.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was in the news and people stopped going there and everything. I want to get back. You mentioned earlier that you were doing these impressions. When did the impressions start for you?
Probably in my childhood days. I used to imitate commercials, and then it became voices and sounds and noises, and it just became part of my shtick, at Rose's and or the Duplex or wherever I was working at the time, and just grew from there. And at one point, I think I clocked them. It was 104 different voices and sounds, noises, and whatnot I could do. But ever since my lip went bad,
But you were Pee Wee Herman. Yes,
I was. Richard, I still have that damn suit in my closet here, because you never know when a Halloween party is going to come up and you're going to need it.
He's going to come back,
But now I'm living in Sarasota, where damn Pee Wee Herman was arrested.
It was in Sarasota?
It was, as a matter of fact. It was.
Oh.
Good evening, sir. Welcome to the Sarasota Cineplex. Would that be stroking or not stroking?
I have to tell you, I have a photograph somewhere on one Halloween where you were Pee Wee and I was Carol Channing. I've got this photograph somewhere. I was trying to find it before today's show. And then, but
you find it, send it to me.
I will. But you were so well known also for your version of Cinderella. When was the last time that you told that story?
Oh my God, the dyslexic Cinderella story. Rindercella. I don't know. It must have been about maybe 3 years at a party. I whipped it out and dusted the jacket off and did the routine. But it was something I learned from the Dr. Demento show, and then just twisted it even more to suit my what I was doing.
Is it there?
So that's what it was.
Is it still there in your head?
Is what here?
Yeah. So you could do it if I ask you to do it?
I could do maybe, yes.
I was hoping you would say that. Am I putting you on the spot?
No, I could do it.
Would you tell it?
I suppose. Now?
Yes, you're brilliant.
Okay.
It's one of my favorite things that you did, among many.
Now, this is a story. This, boys and girls, is a story that'll make your creche fleep. It will give you poo skimples. It's a story for wee folk and figgletoe peep, which is wee folk and bigger people too. Now, the story is all about Rindercella, who lived in this big hark douse with her mead old mepstother and her 2 sisty uglers. And they made Rindercella do all the wordy dirk while they sat around cheating auklets. One day, when Rindercella was in the kitchen flopping the more, the 2 sisty uglers came in and said, "Guess what? The Bransom Hints is brewing a fancy thresh drawl, and we're all invited, all except for you, Rindercella." Well, Rindercella went back into the kitchen with ears in her ties, and she was just about to chickasee a frickin', when suddenly there was a blinding blash of flight, and standing beside her was a futile berry. And Rindercella said, "Who are you and what do you want?" And the fairy said, "Well, I'm your berry fodgather." And Rindercella said, "Well, may I bow to the gall?" And the fairy said, "Well, that's quite a wish." But he said, "Okay." So with a wave of his wand, Rindercella was transformed into a babishing Rudy. She had a long, white, gatton sound and a necklace of boobies and rurls. And the best part, on her feet were 2 tiny sass glippers. Now the fairy said, "Now you may go, but you must promise to be mown by midnight." And Rindercella said, "Okay." So soon, she hops into the, I told you it's been a while. So she hops into the coach, which Punce was a wumpkin, and soon she cast to the camel. That's came to the castle. And when she jumps out of the carriage, who should be the first 2 people she runs into but the 2 sisty uglers? Well, she was so beautiful that they didn't even Cinderize Recognella. So then the bum ditches, they introduced her to the Bransom Hints, and he said, "May I dan this chance?" He said, "You are so beautiful. You remind me of Beepin' Slooty." He was just about to ask for her mare in handage when suddenly the stock sparted to strike 12, and Rindercella banned from the roll. But as she did, one of the tiny sass slippers flipped from her soot. The Bransom Hints picked it up and said, "Now all I have to do is find the woman who soots the flippersits." "Yes, and I'll know who I've lulled in fav." Well, the next day he humps on his jors. Well, you can't saddle a sheep legally. But then he goes from house to house, and you can't turn that around. But soon he comes to the cinder where House Cinderella lived, and he docked on the Nor. And who should come to the door but the two Sister Yogglers? Well, as we all know, their beat were too fig. But soon it was Rindersella's turn, and you know what? The clipper pitted perfectly. They were married and lived happily ever after. And boys and girls, that is the story of Rindersella.
How many times have you told that story? You got it. You still got it.
It's been a long time since I did it, and it works better standing up because there's a lot of body movements and stuff that go with it. But
well,
thank you for that walk down memory
you.
lane. Oh my God!
Now, I got another walk down memory lane for you because I was talking to our mutual friend Brian Summers this morning. I don't know if he's watching.
Oh my God!
Yeah, and he said, please ask him to talk about your experience in Aiken, South Carolina. And this was with Brian Summers and Kendall Standish, who we love and adore.
I know, because I've only been to that part of the world once. We were supposed to do this show, the three of us, for I believe it was a fundraiser for a jockey club or
no, I think it was an AIDS,
like
but I think it was an AIDS fundraiser, if I'm not mistaken.
It was, but it was also for it was being done for whatever it was. I honestly don't remember. Mm-hmm. But we were there. We were supposed to play in this big hall. This do the show on a stage, and it was canceled because we had a blizzard. So we were sitting there wondering, what do we do? This venue is now closed. Let's make the most of it. So we turned the lobby of the place that was putting us up into a piano bar. So we just started singing and carrying on and doing the shows there. And then the lights went out. And then, then the next morning, while we're all still freezing, the earth starts moving. We had a 4.8 earthquake that came through Aiken, following a blackout, followed by what was the ice storm, the blackout, and then an earthquake. It was a triple threat, and I said, Brian, if this isn't a sign, nothing is. Let's get them out of here. You know what I mean?
And how long were you there?
I think it was 3 or 4 days.
Right.
But we played a lot of cards and went to the bar a lot because there was nothing else to do because everything was shut down. The city basically had never had an ice storm like that in the history of it being on the planet. And lucky us, it was that night. So.
If South Carolina has an ice storm or something, they do it big time. I've gone through a few.
They did. They followed it with a blackout and an earthquake. And
so, Mark, let's come up to date with your life now. You've been in Florida now for how long?
For 3 years, but I lived here for 5 years. And when I first left New York, I came down and was in St. Petersburg for 5 years. Then I moved back to Connecticut and back to New York, and eventually back with my friend, who's my husband now of 3 years, Father Jeffrey Hamblin, yes. MD, and an Episcopal priest and a child and adolescent psychiatrist. And we just get along fine, and it works down here for us. So
was it an easy transition for you to go from New York to Florida?
I think after I left the piano bars for the last time, and I decided to leave New York in 2005 with my then husband to move to St. Petersburg, Florida, that I enjoyed going back. So it's all new and fresh, and I see what's changed. I go new places, but I always make sure that I stop and see my friends in the old piano bars. I mean, you have to go home and just see what's new and who's there and who's still there. and what they're doing and support them. Support is so important.
And do you still get the opportunity to perform down in, and I shouldn't say perform, entertain, because you're a true entertainer. But do you get the opportunity down in Florida to do that?
I've done 3 shows since I've been down here. 2 shows, actually. Hello, Dolly, I did with the Players Center for the Performing Arts Theater. And I did my best Rudy for Carol. How about that?
Good. That's wonderful.
And then I did Nonsense for St. Boniface Church.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing a fundraiser, and that was the last show that anybody pretty much ever did in this town since COVID. So that's when everything shut down. And on paper, we were sold out, but when it came to turning the lights on and seeing who was in the audience, half seats. Everybody was starting then to really knuckle down and say, hey, something's coming.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't from West Side Story.
Wow. When everything began to shut down, what did your calendar look like for the year?
Oh, my God. Jeff is on the board of directors for the American University of the Caribbean. And we used to travel to the board meetings 4 times a year for a week at a time, here, there, and everywhere. And if it was overseas, we would extend it. We were booked for a cruise for Jeff's birthday to go down the Danube from the Passion Play, Baramagao, down to Budapest, canceled. We were supposed to go to Hawaii this year to visit friends, canceled. Everything stopped. Everything stopped. And now I actually have days that have nothing on it, on my calendar.
Mm-hmm.
It's never been like that for the last 3 years.
Mm.
There was always something, a theater to go to, an opening of this, a support of that, a fundraiser for this. And it all stopped.
And how are you feeling?
I thank people like you for at least having this venue.
Well, thank you. We're doing the best we can. And you're number 100 today. This is my 101st show.
100 and what? 101?
Yes.
How cool.
Yeah. So
and that's exactly how old I feel.
I feel like that too some days. Do you read a lot? Are you reading any particular books now that you recommend?
The last book I read cover to cover and really loved was The Woman in the Window.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really picked up and dove into a book that much since, and I'm a big Stephen King fan, but I just haven't picked it up. I think I have too much nervous energy to sit down and read, and I don't have enough projects to wear me out to the point where I can sit down and enjoy a book. Mm-hmm. I do a lot of binging on the TV shows, Netflix, and whatever's out there, or old series. Like I'm just pulling myself through. He'll Be Rich.
Are you a binge watcher?
If it's something I enjoy, and if I can pull it up without commercials, it's even better. So.
And what was the last live show that you saw?
We actually went to an outdoor version, a one-man version of A Christmas Carol, where he comes out and he plays Charles Dickens. Mm-hmm. And he did it for the Players Center Theater in a new venue, an outdoor space. And it really worked. So we were glad to be supportive of that. And that was night before last. They're opening, but it's in different venues. They're outdoors mostly, or they're sparsely populated areas where at least 6 feet apart from everybody, you and your group. But they're coming up with new and exciting and innovative ways to still keep the magic and the joy of theater going, through this whole thing until it's over. And probably once they finally figure it out and get it right, the theaters will be open again. So, but it'd be nice to have that in 100 years when another thing happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what was the last Broadway show that you saw?
We were supposed to see Moulin Rouge in July for Jeff's birthday, but it wasn't open yet. So we were going to go back in October when he had his board meeting, but that was canceled. So the last Broadway show we saw, I don't know. I was it Hamilton? No. I think it was Waitress. I think we were up there and said, "Oh, we haven't seen this. Let's go see it." So that was probably our last one.
So I'd like to
up there, but everything that we missed in transition, we saw a theater company down here. Your turn.
So I want to give a shout out to Jeffrey because Jeffrey has been a great benefactor in New York Cabaret with the Salon and with Cabaret Fest and with other things. Did his love of cabaret and that art form come as a result of the two of you being together, or was that already in place before you two knew each other?
I believe he had an aunt that was raising him kind of like Mame Dennis raised Patrick, where she took him to see all of this theater and cabaret and dine at Sardi's on his birthday, which has become a tradition every year since. He's here, as a matter of fact. Jeff, come here. We're talking about you. So I think he can tell it probably best because he and I have been the sponsors of the Cabaret Fest up in there he is.
Jeffrey. It's good to see you.
Hi, Richard.
I was just asking Mark,
And you
have been such an, we appreciate it. You've been a major benefactor here in New York with the Salon, Cabaret Fest, and other cabaret-related events. Did this come about because of your relationship with Mark, or were you already there before you two knew each other?
I've been going to New York since I was about 10 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go for summers to give my parents a break and stay with my Aunt Dora, or who I called Aunt Dora. And my 10-year-old birthday present was to go to Sardi's and do a show. And I've been doing that as a high schooler. She snuck me into Five Oaks, and I sat on the bench with Marie Blake and sang. And that became a kind of tradition. When I was in seminary and Dora was getting much older, I'd come down and stay with her, and we tried to do the circuit. And it wasn't until I came to New York to start my residency in psychiatry at Kings County, downstate SUNY, that I walked into Rose's Turn because I love to sing. Never remember the words, make them up half the time. Mark will tell you, he gets so mad at me with that.
I still do.
But I saw this can with this guy's face on it that's collecting money for, and I kind of fell in love with the guy on the can and chased him for 25 years before I got him to say yes. And now we're 28 years and he's had in and out relationships, and I've been doing medicine and emergency medicine in Brooklyn. And finally it came time, and when I was the priest in charge of Christ Church Bay Ridge on my final Sunday there, walking down the aisle after saying goodbye, and I said, "Will you marry me?" This is the final hymn going down the aisle. And I said, "Will you marry me?" And he said, "No."
I did. I said, why the fuck not?
A couple of old ladies raised their eyebrows.
Well, God bless you both.
Some
And
other
thank
people
you both.
saying all the louder.
Well, I thank you both for all that you do. I can't believe this, Mark, but we are at the end of our show. I want to thank everybody who tuned in today. Thanks for being here. If you had a great time, and I hope you all did, and if you don't mind,
Where did you go?
I'm right here. Go to my website, richardskipper.com. Sign my guest book with your thoughts about the show. That helps to boost me in other markets. I also end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Go to your Facebook friends list. Go to the third name on the list and call that person today. Don't text them. Don't email them. Don't private message them. Call them. And let them know about my show tomorrow. I'm going to be here with the one and only Sue Mitsuki. I love her. And we're on at 4:00 tomorrow.
We do too.
Yes. And before we end, Mark and Jeffrey too, Mark, if there's any, I'm going to give you the final word. Anything you want to say about anything that we talked about that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any message that you want to put out to everyone right now. And Mark, I love you. Thank you for doing this today.
It was my pleasure, Richard. Absolutely. We've both been there for so long, and I'm glad that you were helping people remember me.
They can't forget.
Be kind. Just be kind to one another. Let's have some hope and sensibility about our country and ourselves. God bless you all, and thank you so much for doing the right thing and staying safe. We love you.
Amen.
Bye.
Goodbye.